I'm Jeremy, and this is my 1988 Mk3 Supra.
So 5 years ago, I got a message on Instagram, and this happens quite a bit, but I got a message from somebody that owns a Mk3 Toyota Supra, and he was like, hey, I'm building a big single 7M GTE, which of course is not the norm, especially when compared to engines like the 1J and the 2J. And he was like, hey, let's shoot. And then I never heard from him again until last week when I got a message saying, hey, I know it's been a while. Yeah, 5 years, no, 6 years. But I've got my 7M, it's got a single turbo on it now, so here we are, let's go for a drive. We're about to meet up with them. The 7M is a bit of an underdog, but today we're gonna find out if that really is the case and if the owner of this particular car is nervous at all that the engine might blow and where he thinks his power limit kind of is. So let's go for a drive. Right up. All right, you guys, let's go. Straight pipe 7M. Oh yeah, this is what I came here today for. This was effectively the first Supra in North America to really have a turbo. This was the beginning of the Supra name. Of course, before this, the original Celica Supra, the first two generations were where the Celica and the Supra parted ways, where the Celica inevitably would die a slow and painful front-wheel drive death, whereas here the Supra would go on to become legendary. This one's got an R154. It was originally an automatic car, so it's got the automatic diff, which apparently has a different ratio in the rear. So the gearing is slightly different than what would be found in an original manual car. Wow, aggressive differential. Of course, I believe I'm correct in saying all Mk3 Supras came with an LSD from the factory, all turbo Mk3 Supras. So even though this wasn't automatic, it still got an LSD. This one's been dynoed, 9 PSI, very conservative 9 PSI, 340 wheel horsepower. So the exhaust turbine is from a diesel generator. My eyes went wide when he told me that. Oh yeah. And then the compressor side is something else. Aftermarket manifold, of course, but the exhaust housing is huge. It looks like there's a ton of flow there. So for the size of the turbo, 340 horsepower, pretty good. We get really good spool.
Well, it was a couple decisions that made me decided to buy a Mk3. As one, I had a buddy that had a Midnight Blue Mk3. He was building it with a 1.5J, and that made me want it. And then I saw your video with a white Mk3 with 1,000 horse, and that's also made me decide to pull the trigger. So one of my buddies worked at a shop, and the owner had one just sitting in the back.
Like I said in the intro, Jeremy has had this car for a number of years, but he finally got around to building it. A buddy of his, like a friend, yes, that's what buddy means, runs a shop called Unknown Automotive in Maple Ridge, very close to my friend Jerry's shop, Sideways Autosport actually. And he apparently has like 10, 12 Mk3 Supras. They've got 7Ms galore. So naturally, of course, Jeremy listened to his friend and was like, hey, let's build a 7M. Not a 1J, not a 2J, not a 1.5J, a 7M, and see what we can do. So
I was originally just wanting to get that original engine just built, not really built, just up and running, just so I could experience the car stock. But then when we pulled the engine, it had a lot of issues with it. Then I had a buddy that had a fully built 7M just sitting in his basement. I decided to ask him if I could buy it. He sold it to me. And then there is just exhalated to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we able to pop the hood real quick?
Yep.
Sweet.
This one's iffy. If it's warm out, it'll stay. If it's cold, it won't. The fronts just won't stay. My buddy AJ at Unknown Auto, he did the valve covers for me. He didn't tell me what color he was going to do. He's like, yeah, I just painted your valve covers. And he surprised me with that, and I honestly really like it.
That's good to have somebody that works on your car that you trust like that. You know?
Yeah. At the moment, it's just making 340 horse at 9 pounds of boost, and I believe it's like 280 torque. And that's going to stay like that for now till I get a bigger fuel pump to add more boost. And then once I do that, I'll probably stop at 450.
R154, a little more sloppy than I remember. So easy to rev match. The brake pedal and gas pedal are in perfect position. They're actually very close. Honestly, in any modern car, I would say they're a little bit too close, but here it works. Really interesting. So, and I would have never guessed this just looking at it, but that's redline. 7,000. It's got a beefed up valve train too, so it does rev a little bit past the factory redline. Yeah, I'm gonna guess these are factory brakes, stock brakes. That's just a wild guess. Once you're past 3,000 RPM, the boost threshold is great. But the weird thing about this car, very strange, it's drive-by-wire. If you look at the throttle body, it is drive-by-wire. And that was taken from a Ford, some kind of Ford, Jeremy was saying. And then the gas pedal, oh, maybe that's why it's so close to the brake, actually. Duh, that makes sense. It's from a GMC. That was made, of course, to just create a little bit more tunability with the Link. Gearing's good too. I like the short gearing. Not too short. A lot of this would be second gear in any Corvette for sure. Anything with longer gears. But here you can go down to second. You can leave it in third. Ah, the rotation. A little bit sideways there. Okay. The differential is definitely not like an aggressive locking diff, but it does work. You can feel a little bit of a one wheel feel there.
Honestly, from what my builder told me, the way that he did everything, like it's fully built, forged pistons, I believe it's like titanium lifters, and everything you could really think of's done to it. The turbo is a Frankenstein turbo, but as far as I know, it's like a 66 millimeter. And then, oh yeah, and even the coil packs are from a Honda as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they sit a little higher,
yeah,
but they work. Yeah, I do need to get a mount made for it so they don't shake when I drive, but at the moment, it works. And the only thing I would be nervous about if I actually want to try to shoot the 1,000 horse, then yeah, I would be nervous about the engine going.
Yeah.
But if I go to 450, 500, I'm pretty confident the engine can take it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some weird little 80s quirks too. It's got these coin trays, I guess you could call them, on the left side. Keep those in check when the G-forces are increased. And the Mark III actually had adaptive suspension. Toyota's like first adaptive suspension, which is kind of crazy. Adjustable dampers. And definitely aside from, with exception to, the Fish Racing 1J I drove very recently, which you guys should check out. It still feels heavy. It doesn't rev up as quick as that car. It still feels like a GT engine. It doesn't feel NA snappy. Yeah, it's fast though. Sounds really good. But factory, these engines, for the amount of displacement, they were very under-tuned. CT26 turbo on the factory North American spec 7Ms, same turbo that was in the 2-liter 3S GTE in the SW20 MR2, and the JDM MR2s of the early and mid 90s had more power than the North American 7M, and they were a liter smaller, a full liter smaller, and they made about 10 more horsepower, factory rated. Called the North American market stuffed. Did we get stuffed with the Mark III? A little bit, but people have proven that wrong. Really cool though, Jeremy was talking when we were outside the car, and one of the reasons he bought this car originally was because of our white Mark III Supra with Dwayne back in the day, 1,036 wheel horsepower. That's when I learned, that moment was when I learned about the 7M and how it wasn't obviously as sought after as a 2JZ in the later cars, but what Dwayne taught me was that you can prove people wrong, you can fight that uphill battle and get to your goals, get to your destination if you want to. You don't just have to, hey, read forum posts and be like, oh, this is technically on paper the better decision, and go that route. You don't have to follow the crowd and do that if you don't want to. If you want to chase after those headaches, they're there for you. The mountains are there to climb. And most recently in YouTube world, the other day I was watching, of course, Tavares and his infamous flooded McLaren P1. That's a great example of that. So I think here, just to see an original 7M in here is awesome.
Like, it doesn't have AC, the alternator's relocated a little lower where the AC used to be, and besides that, it's a nice, fun car.
Yeah. Would you regret not going 1J or 2J, or you seem pretty happy with the 7M?
I like to keep with the 7M just because I know everyone, there's like a saying that I hear, 2J the world.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to be one of those people. Nothing against it. I love the engine, but I would prefer to keep the 7M in this. I even made a joke one year to my buddy. If I crash the car, the engine's good, I'll buy a Mark IV, throw this engine in it.
That would piss a few people
and
off.
Yeah, that's exactly what my buddy said. He'll piss off a few people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh well.
All right, let's do it. I mean, guys, for a quote-unquote budget build, but something that still has great tunability and potential here, past what it's already doing, it drives great. There's a little bit of hesitation with the drive-by-wire from 0 to a little bit of throttle, but other than that, it feels strong. 7M, the underdog, but will Jeremy find the limit here? He doesn't seem worried. I'm not worried. 9 PSI is great. Quick spool. Yeah, could a ball bearing turbo help here? Could a more modern turbo help here? Yeah, absolutely. But does it need it? No. Spool's really good. Spool begins like 3,500 RPM, and that's still pretty low, especially when you can rev to 7. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit me up on Instagram if you haven't already, at Roads Untraveled. You can hit Jeremy up on Instagram. That's in the description. See you guys next time. We got another R34 friend. We found an R34 friend.